Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to 13 Now. I'm News 13's Amy Hoyt. We are live in our News 13 newsroom on Harrison Avenue. And with tomorrow being Buddy Check Day, where we remind women to check for lumps in their breast, today we want to bring you some new information about breast cancer, how to detect it, and how to take care of your health. We have a very special guest today. This is a little bit different than our breast cancer survivors. She is a nurse at Gulf Coast Regional Medical Center. This is Kay Hankins. Kay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
We're going to talk a little bit about your role as an oncology nurse navigator at the hospital and what that means for patients and how you can help. But first off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I've been a registered nurse for about almost 23 years, and I've been employed at Gulf Coast Regional Medical Center for almost 23 years. I'm a resident of Bay County. I've been here for 25 years, went to Gulf Coast State College for my nursing degree, as well as my bachelor's degree, and I'm currently working on a master's degree.
Wow, good for you. That's pretty good. We're very happy to have you today.
Thank you.
Now, you kind of started this role as the nurse navigator. Tell us what that means.
Yes, this is a role that began actually in the 90s, and a doctor in New York City actually started this role because there were so many young people and even older people that lived outside the city, and they were being diagnosed at a later stage of cancer, breast cancer in particular. So he wanted to do something and start a program. So he started the Navigator program, to where he had people out in the outer city limits to help educate these patients, to get them in and get them taken care of before their cancer advanced to a more, higher stage, and to where there was no, help for recovery.
And you had told me earlier you were a nurse in a different end of the medical spectrum prior to this. So you started this role here, correct?
Correct. About 12 years ago is when we started the Oncology Nurse Navigator role. And prior to that at the hospital, I had always worked in women's health. I started off with labor and delivery, worked in newborn care, and worked a little in the NICU. So I've always been involved with women's health.
Now, one of the things we learned when we talked to breast cancer survivors on this program is that they didn't always have an advocate or a friend maybe that had experience with breast cancer. So that's kind of where you come in, where you can help women. What's the first thing someone does when they need your kind of help?
Okay, so their physician can contact me. I work very closely with most all of the physicians here in Bay County. And we also, if they show up for surgery, I may not get them before surgery, but I always try to meet them prior to surgery and introduce myself and try to help alleviate some of the concerns that they may have. But I try to reach them out in the community with the screenings or the education of prevention, so that they kind of know my face and know who I am. But if not, and I meet them at the hospital, at that point, then I continue through their care with them.
Okay, and tell me what that involves. I know there's a lot.
There is. Well, with women, we're the real caretakers of our family. So I think when we hear that word cancer, or we hear what we're going to have to go through, then we become very overwhelmed. We try to put up a front to say, it's okay, I got this, I'm good. And that's what we want to do. But deep down inside, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, I can't die. My kids need me. My husband needs me. I've got so much to do. So my job is to kind of come in and reel them back in and say, it's okay, let's take this one step at the time, or else it is going to be overwhelming. And then I try to empower that patient to take care of themselves first, because if they don't take care of themselves, then they're no good to their family. So I really try to encourage that at the very beginning.
Now, do you have women of different ages come to you? We always think it's over 40, but it's not always.
Oh, absolutely. I have had young ladies in their 20s. I've had women that were pregnant, and this is a time in their life when they're thinking, nothing more than having this new baby, and then all of a sudden they're told, I'm afraid you got breast cancer. So that's very tough to deal with. So no, I've had them from in the 20s all the way up into the late 90s.
Well, it's interesting to me, and we talked earlier about a pregnant mom-to-be being diagnosed with breast cancer, can they go through chemotherapy?
Absolutely. There's certain chemo that they can have at certain times of their pregnancy. Of course, the first trimester, that's always the critical part.
Right.
But after that point, there are certain chemo drugs that they can take. We've had our pregnant patients that had lumpectomies and or like a mastectomy even while being pregnant. And if sometimes they wanted to do the bilateral mastectomies, but the surgeon's like, no, we're going to just do the one because they don't want to have the patient under anesthesia that long of time.
What about elderly patients? Sometimes it's harder. We all know as the older you get, but do you ever see elderly patients diagnosed?
Absolutely. I've seen ladies in their 90s, and that's why it's so important that, there's so much controversy, but I think that everyone deserves to live. I believe that everyone needs to have that mammogram annually, and, they can back off a couple years if their physician says they can, and that would be if you didn't have any, risk factors for breast cancer. But there again, you do not have to have any family history of breast cancer in order to be diagnosed yourself with breast cancer. But I've had ladies, like I said, I had a 97-year-old,
wow,
and she had minimal treatment, just with a lumpectomy, and she did extremely well. But there again, she was a very active 97-year-old.
Right, and treatment has come a long way.
Oh, goodness. Yes, it has. People are not as sick as what they used to be. Now, there are some side effects, but they don't last as long as what they used to be because they get a little cocktail prior to their treatments, and that kind of helps to make it a little bearable. And then they get more medication at home and kind of helps them through the first couple of days.
Now, with the wide range of patients, of the ages of patients, do you ever see any mental health issues? This has got to play on your psyche, no matter what age you are.
Absolutely. And especially right now with going through the pandemic, and of course our area going through Michael, we had Hurricane Michael, then we had the pandemic, and then you have these women that are being diagnosed with breast cancer, and some of them are still working on building their homes, having to take care of kids, and they've put things aside. And I know that studies, the beginning studies are showing that there's going to be more diagnosis of breast cancer because so many women did not have their mammograms during the pandemic time. And it's real important that you don't stop having those screenings because cancer doesn't wait. And the sooner we can get the detection, if you do have breast cancer, the better chances you have, and the treatment is far less than if it's in an advanced stage.
What kind of help did you have to give breast cancer patients during Hurricane Michael? That had to be a task.
Oh, it was. We're very lucky because, of course, here in Bay County, we didn't have any communications, very, very little. We, as a hospital, HCA, we have in Florida and in other states, we have navigators all through our HCA facilities. And my team here in Florida, they were able to pick up where I left off. Of course, our hospital was damaged, so I was not able to report to work at Gulf Coast. But my coworkers that were the navigators that were in other areas of the state of Florida, they were able to get into my records, contact my patients and say, I'm here, I'm what Kay does, how can I help you? So they were able to help facilitate continuing treatment for these patients because, again, cancer doesn't stop and you don't want there to be an interruption in your treatment. And the same goes for just recently Hurricane Ida in Louisiana. We had a lot of evacuees to come to Bay County, and so I was contacted by several people about wanting to continue treatment and how could they go about it. Well, our oncologists are wonderful. They are more than willing to help these patients because they know what their own patients went through with Michael. But the biggest thing is we have to make sure that these patients keep good records, get copies of your medical records, make sure you have access to a patient portal if you have a patient portal, because that way it helps the receiving physicians know what treatment you're getting, They know your history and your physical. They know your family history. So it's really, really important. I can't stress that enough, to make sure you have your medical records, a journal. Keep a journal with the dates and what you had done and where you had procedures completed, mammogram, biopsy, surgery. Those are all very, very vital to being able to continue with your care, because you never know, if a disaster is going to happen.
And I know it's old school, but to keep a printed copy of something, because as we know, as you mentioned, technology went belly up during Hurricane Michael.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There again, keep a little notebook, a binder. I stress that to every patient that I meet. I always tell them at the beginning of our meeting to keep records, keep a binder, and keep dates and times and physicians' names and copies of reports, mammogram reports or biopsy reports. So it's very, very important to your care.
What do you offer in the way of preventative?
We are in the community quite a bit. We try to really educate. We try to talk about breast cancer. We try to tell what the risks are. A lot of people have this thing of, they think that, well, I have no family history, so there's no way I'm going to get breast cancer. That's not true. You do not have to have a family history to have breast cancer. We also try to encourage the younger ladies to start doing their monthly exams is very important, because it helps them to get familiar with their own body, and so they know that if there's been any changes, then it kind of prompts them to say, wait, this hasn't always been here. So again, early detection is your best protection.
Right. I was looking down at the Facebook page to see if anybody had any questions, and if they do, I'll pass those along to you. What else do you offer? I mean, there's a lot going on at Gulf Coast. Do you just do breast cancer?
No.
Is it just this? Because oncology is any kind of cancer, correct?
Yeah, it started off as just breast cancer and women's health, and then it kind of evolved because the physicians were like, hey, I have this patient, can you help them? Because I provide a lot of resources. Some people have problems with transportation, so we try to work that out, or some people don't have insurance, so we go to our resources to help provide financial assistance, housing assistance, food, daycare. We've had patients that needed to travel maybe outside of the county, and they needed pet care services. So
wow.
there's
you do a lot.
there's an array of a lot that we try, but we have such good resources available. And when the patients first meet them, I also give them make a referral to what is Well List, and through Sarah Cannon, which Sarah Cannon is the Cancer Institute for HCA, and that's in our corporate office in Nashville. So they contact the patient as well, and they have a list of all the resources that are available in all the different counties.
Now we talk about the patient, obviously, who's diagnosed, let's say, with breast cancer, but it affects the whole family. So do you offer services for them as well?
Absolutely. I've had many meetings with the husbands of the wives, because the wife becomes kind of quiet and acts like they don't know what, nothing really is wrong. And then the husbands sometimes don't know what to say. How can I help my wife? What do I need to do? And they are really suffering at the same time, as well as the children, whether they're older or younger, because anytime, a parent, especially that's been diagnosed with cancer, there's so much we want to do. And again, when people hear the word cancer, they immediately think death. And that's just not the case any longer. There's been so many advances that people are living longer that have had cancer diagnosis.
Okay. What else is there to know about this program? Maybe something I'm not asking.
Well, I'm there to help you through your journey, through the beginning of diagnosis all the way to survivorship, and sometimes the end of life. The end of life is not fun at all for me, but I have to be very strong. And I always remember a story about a patient that she wanted to speak to just me, so she had her family to leave her room, and she was debating whether to go home with hospice, and she just didn't want her family to think that she was giving up, and she wanted to know what it was going to be like to die. So she had finally come to the realization that she knew that everything had been done that could possibly be done for her. And so later, after she passed away, I met with her husband and her daughter, and I was able to share with them at that point that she just did not want them to think that she was giving up, but that she was just tired. And so they were able to, I think, maybe accept it a little bit better, to know that she didn't give up, and that it helped them to feel better to know that she was at peace.
Now, are you the only person who does this, or do you have a team?
At our facility, I'm the only one that does the oncology nurse navigating. And we do have other people on our team that can help. You know, if I don't know the answer, I always try to find someone who does know the answer. We have a coordinator and we have a director locally at our facility, and they can also, you know, reach out to them. You can reach out, they can find me. I do more of the one-on-one with the patients, and work very closely with our physicians.
Where do you get your strength from? It's got to be taxing on you as well, because it's an emotional event.
It is. It's very emotional because after, you know, you're with these patients for years, and then you may not have a very good outcome. It really is sad, and it breaks my heart. But I think the most comforting thing is to know that I was there with them, and that I hope that I have made, you know, that journey just a little bit better for the patient and their family.
Well, a lady on Facebook named Shirley Perez says, Kay, you're the best. Sure have helped our family, pardon me, with some difficult times. Now here's from a gentleman named Philip Cunningham Jr. He says, it may seem unimportant at the time, but for income tax purposes, keep track of all expenses, including travel, because cancer can be very expensive. Do you provide financial information, at least? I know you're not a bank, but information on how to handle things like that?
We do have resources available that we can refer the patients to. That is a very valid point. I mean, we do tell the patients to keep up with their receipts. We tell them to travel, because some of the times the insurance companies will reimburse the patients for travel. You know, we're very lucky here in Bay County that we have some really good cancer care. Of course, you know, as in other areas, sometimes you have to go to, you know, a higher level of care, but our patients are able to come back to Bay County for treatment, because cancer, you know, it's treated basically the same for each breast cancer or pancreatic cancer, liver cancer. There's standards that the physicians follow. So that's, you know, and the insurance companies do pay for well, a lot of the insurance companies, I should say, they do pay for travel. And then we have the American Cancer Society, you know, that we can maybe get gas cards from, or get other, you know, providers to help out.
You're kind of like a one-stop shop. You kind of have knowledge of a lot of different things that can help people in such, you know, a crucial time in their life.
Well, I'm just very proud of my position. I love what I do, and I just hope that I'm able to help just a little bit, if you know. But it's a very rewarding position for me.
Well, it shows that you love it, and we appreciate it very much. And we thank you for coming by and telling us about this resource and these services from Gulf Coast Regional Medical Center. Kay Hankins, she is a nurse navigator. It's a cool title. I kind of like that. So if you need any help with that, you can check in with her at the hospital. Phone number?
850-747-7730.
Good job. I caught you off guard. I know none of us memorize phone numbers anymore because of cell phones. All right, Kay, thank you for stopping by and being a part of 13 Now. And just a reminder that tomorrow is Buddy Check. Don't forget to check for lumps in your breast. And if you find anything or have any questions, contact your doctor right away. I'm Amy Hoyt. We'll see you next time.